after the last class, one of the people watching it said, everything you say is very good, but I can't figure out how to have enough time to do all those things. And when I read the Dashabhumika Sutra, it's filled with so many things to do. I don't know when I would have time to do them all. And I felt that was a really good observation. And I thought I would want to address it in the lecture tonight before we proceed with the rest of the sutra. I hope that's okay with everybody else. All right, thank you. So the question is, when do we have enough time to do so much? We're all busy, some busier than others. And we just seem to be in a rush all the time. And so when I take a class like this, lo and behold, I feel I'm adding to my burden rather than having the burden lifted from me. So with your permission, I want to talk about this. So let's go to the first slide. I don't know what your refrigerator looks like or where your calendar is. I have a calendar on the wall in my dining area. It has all the to-dos on it. Some days there's not enough space to put all the names. And I certainly use stickums. I used to use them on my refrigerator, but I don't anymore. So we need to ask ourselves the question, I think, about how is it we decide to use our time? And in what way do we use it? And is it true that trying to follow the Dashabhumika Sutra adds 50 or 100 new things every time we have a lecture? If so, I can't do it. That was the message I got. And I really appreciated hearing that. So let me try to deal with this in ways which I hope give you some hope. Now, in order to answer this question, I decided that I should not put it just in my own words, but I should use the words from the sutra itself. I asked the sutra, in a sense, how is it that you ask so much of us? You ask so many things, and they're all good, and we all feel that that's what we should be doing. And yet, how is there possibly enough time to do everything? So the sutra first tells us that action or doing something is, of course, the word karma. Karma means to do an action. We normally think of karma as being a result of the past, but it also is used as a verb, just meaning to do things. So there are two types, say the sutra, of things that we do. The first is that karmic action, that is action which is based on whatever has come before it, however far back you want to take that, causes us to become confused with respect to the conditions that we're living in. We're very confused by our karmic action in the sense that are we living in a time which is totally dependent upon our former actions? How in the world do we relate to the people around us? Does our karma have to be in common with theirs before we even meet them? Are these karmic actions something that come down from the past? So it's confusing in one sense. This is the words of the sutra itself. So it says, once you have these unanswered and confusing questions, then we try to solve them by volitional action. We try to solve them by saying, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to clear the board. I'm going to practice every day, or I'm going to make a list. But that's still, we're working from ignorance. It's very easy to act from ignorance. My wife and I discovered that at the end of her life, when we sat and we talked about our lives together. And I realized that I had been thinking that she had thoughts in one direction, and she didn't. And she thought I had thoughts in one direction, and I didn't. And we each thought that we loved the other more than the other loved us. And we realized that it wasn't true. That those projections that we had put out on each other simply were not the case. And so it caused confusion. And we were confused about how to relate to one another for years. It's an awful admission. But fortunately, once we had come to this, then we understood that you really need to get rid of the idea that you can develop your action on what you think the other person is thinking. You can't do it. You just can't do it. We have no idea of the depth of other people's thoughts, other people's needs. We can't know, even if we love them and we're close to them. So our volitional acts based on ignorance turn out to be very difficult, but more importantly, they turn out to be very time-consuming. We spend all our time thinking about what somebody else is thinking about us. we worry that we're being judged. We're worrying that we're not living up to our what we wish to be, how we wish to be seen. And when we worry about that, it takes all our time. So from one perspective, in order to have any time in your life, and my life, we have to give up having these ideas that we can live our lives based on what we think others are doing and thinking. We simply have to stop doing that in order to have any time at all. I think you all know this. If you feel that somebody is angry with you or that somebody disagrees with you, you can't stop thinking about it. You find yourself returning over and over during the day to that person and wondering, what are they going to do? What can I do to rescue the situation? So that the time has come for us to understand that we should try to stop this kind of living and stop living this way and understand that what we have to do is to figure out a different way to act, a different way to live our lives so that we free up some time and we don't waste our time worrying and fretting. Now, the Dasha Bhumika goes on to say, it's like, it says, look, if I were to have in me all the discussion about what your life is like and what you should do and how people should act, that discussion would be boundless. It could go on for hundreds of thousands of Samkhya moments. You can never have a completion. And these endless moments that just keep on going mean that it's impossible. First of all, it's just impossible to think that with the sutra, as complex as the Dasha Bhumika, that I can make a small list of things that I should do, and then I do those, and I take the time to do them. But the complexity of how you figure that out is endless. It's endless. You can just keep going and going and going. And if something is endless, you never reach the end of it. You never stop thinking it. You never stop doing it. So again, the sutra itself is very honest in a way. It says, you bet there's a lot of difficulty figuring out what to do and how to do it. And it's very difficult to understand that what you're going to read in me is an abbreviation of what I could write. If I had a sutra that told you everything, it would be an endless sutra. So now that the sutra tells us there's a problem, does the sutra say there's some way to deal with it? I feel that we need to read the text with that in mind. And it says, in order to fulfill all the great vows of the Bodhisattva, they remain diligent in the cultivation of all practices, doing so in all worlds, all kalpas, in all lands, never desisting even briefly. I think that for us, it says that we're far better off if we could live by making vows. If we could live by our vows, because in order to make a vow, I vow to do something, we have to think about it. We have to think what it means. And that's why Buddhism is a religion of vows, not of commandments. It doesn't tell us you have to do this. It asks, what do you vow to do? And if you vow to do it, then with all your strength and all your energy, try to fulfill that vow. And that's what the sutra itself is recommending that a bodhisattva does. So once you do this, which task is chosen? Which vow do you make? We have so many, so what do I choose? And it says, the sutra itself says, you must first of all determine what your own strength is. What can you do? And you vow according to what your strength is. And the next is you vow because what the vow is something which is fitting. That is, it works to help the present situation. It really speaks to where we are right now at this moment. So when I decide that I'm going to put an emphasis on according to my own strength, what does that mean? You know, once when I was in college, one day I was swimming in the swimming pool, and through the door came a whole group of swimmers. And it turned out that they were the Olympic swim team coming to the campus, and they were going to practice in our swimming pool. And so they all jumped in and started just swimming to warm up. And I found myself swimming with Olympics champions. Now, of course, I couldn't keep up, but I could do what they did. I could swim. Maybe my swim wasn't of the strength of theirs, but by golly, I was doing what the Olympic team was doing. And so I think that we need to understand this. We're in the swimming pool of life, and in comes the Bodhisattva, and he's like the Olympic swimming champion. But the Bodhisattva says, you're not to think that you must do something which you're not capable of doing. That's not what life is about. That's not what Buddhism is trying to teach you. It's trying to teach you to know what you can do and to feel that you have an understanding of your own strengths and that you do what is appropriate for you. So what was appropriate for me was, of course, to get out of the pool so the Olympians could do their swim. But just for that moment, I swam with the Olympians. And we can think when you're reading the Dashabhumika, there's something in you always, and in all of us, that's like the eighth bhumi. We may not have everything in the eighth bhumi, but by golly, we can do what a bodhisattva does right now. And it is according to our strength. Now, as a teacher, I find that the greatest problem is that people do not know what their strengths are. People try to operate with aspects in their life that are not their strengths. And when we do that, we waste effort. I can't swim like an Olympian. No way. I can't be like a ninth level bodhisattva. No way at this point in my life. However, if I can know what I can do, and I know that there are things I can do, and I do them, then I'm swimming with the Olympians. I'm swimming with the bodhisattvas. When I read your comments that you've made about the Course, I think this comes through over and over again, where people say, I'm not sure of myself. I don't know that I can do this. I don't think I can be this. How can I possibly be this enlightened or be so full of the treasures of Buddhism? But the sutra doesn't ask us to do that. It says, first of all, do an inventory. What are my strengths? I often find this with bilingual people. Being bilingual is their great strength. And yet, because it seems easy to them, they don't treasure it. They don't recognize how wonderful it is to be bilingual. And that is one of the biggest assets you can have. And that therefore, when you think of how should I act, and you take an inventory of your strengths, for all of you, bilingual is one of your strengths. And you should every day be thankful that you have it. I'm so happy with my granddaughters. Their mother is Japanese, and they have grown up bilingual. And they still remain bilingual. And I keep reminding them, this is such a wonderful thing that you can speak Japanese. First of all, you can speak to your Japanese grandparents. And what a joy that is to them to hear you speak to them in Japanese. You can do that. You have this great ability. Don't lose it. Keep it. It'll be good for you in your later life. You'll find out when you go out to get a job, if you can say, I'm bilingual in English and Japanese, you may very well find that it gives you a living that would not have been yours without it. So I think the sutra is telling us all that you choose a task that's in commensurate with your own strengths. Now, then the text goes on to say something which at first I found this hard to understand. It said, you ought to ask as many questions as you can, that you must always question and request clarification, request for assistance. And this is something which we all need to learn. We're certainly having it with regard to artificial intelligence. How do I question artificial intelligence? How do I ask it in such a way that it gives me a good response? I know some of you have taken the course and dealt with how do you use the prompting, the questioning. How do you do that? It's very crucial. We're about to start doing the launch of the Foguan Shan Buddhist Dictionary. And it's going to be really important for us to try to help people ask the right questions of that dictionary. It's only when they ask the right questions that they will get the clarifications that it can give to them. So if we don't know what to ask, and if you think, well, I just don't know what to ask, this is something that we all need to practice. We need to work on our questions, because without that questioning being in the most correct fashion, we will never be able to deal with the value that's in the data, but where you can't deal with the data. So how do you ask? Well, if you were going to journalism school, they ask you that you ask for the W's. Why, when, where, who, and I've added to this which, and how. In other words, we began to ask these type of questions. So if you take journalism, they say, you want to be able to answer who, where, when, at least in the first sentence of your story. So I think when we are saying, what am I supposed to do when I ask questions of the AI or the dictionary, I need to ask, I may say the who is me. I want something that reflects on my behavior. When? Well, I want something which is usable right now, in this day and time. Where? I want it to be wherever I am. I don't want it to be something where if I move from one place to another, that I leave behind all my strengths and all my abilities. You monastics must feel this often. You leave Foguan Shan. It's hard to leave that wonderful place, to go out into the world where you are going to be alone, where you may be the only person in a foreign land without the surrounding Sangha to be there for you daily. You have to face these things. So what we want is that, and you must all feel this, when you leave Fogon Shan to take up a task somewhere abroad, you want to be able to take with you the strength of the tradition. You want to be able to have with you the ability to center yourself, to respond in appropriate ways to the needs of all the people who are around you. So the where in terms of the questioning that we do is very important. And then the question of which. I put that in because when people say, I don't know what to do, which thing is it that I should do? And the which is important. We have to prioritize. We cannot do everything at once. So we ask ourselves the question, which one of these things is the one that I need the most right now? Now you'll notice that I said that I need, and I mean that for myself, and I'm speaking for you too. The Buddhists are always telling us, you must do it for yourself first, and then do it for the other person. So that I must say, which is the one I should do, so that I can then do it for someone else if I've done it for myself. The sutra goes on to say, someone who does this kind of questioning, who does their practice, who keeps the focus on themselves and what they can do, and has the willingness and joy of sharing with others, there comes a point where they can do it without having to expend any particular effort. It becomes easier. It becomes effortless almost. I always think of riding a bike when I think of this one. That when you first start riding the bike and you have to hold it up and you have to resist gravity, you can wear yourself to a frazzle and never ride. It's only when you can really begin to let yourself go with the bike, go with the flow, without having to expend a lot of particular effort, that you ride a bike. So it tells me, when I'm a teacher, if it's too hard to teach it, probably you don't know what you're doing. And that's often the case for me. There are many times when I realize I can't teach this. I haven't experienced it myself. How can I ask those people out there to do something which I myself can't do or haven't done? So that says when I decide which, all I have to do is to, and I do this, all I have to do is to look at myself and figure out what I'm going to teach on the basis of what I know, what I have experienced. I used not to put my experience in my lectures. And all of you who began to hear a little bit of my experiences all said, oh, please do. We'd rather hear your experience than anything else. That helps us. And why does it help? Because it says to you that what I'm talking about has already been dealt with to some degree by me. And now I'm sharing that with you. And after a while, you know, it does get easier. I think I've told you already the story of how, after 20 years of teaching, I just found that I was bored. I've been teaching the same course at Berkeley for 20 years. And I had these yellowed old class notes that I would kind of piece together in a folder and take them into the classroom. Until one day I thought, I'm so bored giving this lecture. I've given it how many times? And then it came to me, then don't do it. And then I thought, what do you mean? I have to give these lectures. It's my job. I'm required to do this. Then the other voice in me said, no, nobody tells you exactly what you're supposed to teach. And so I took all my notes and put them in big black bags and threw them away. I just threw away all my class notes and went into class and said, from now on, I'm just going to teach what I like. I'm going to teach, basically, I was saying, I'm going to teach what I understand from my own experience. And Buddhism, if you want to know about it, read a book. You can get it. You don't need me to read that book to you. I'm tired of reading the book to you. I won't do it anymore. So what we do, number one, I think, is if it's what we are actually living and dealing with in our life, there's an excitement about talking about it. How can you get bored when you're talking about, I'm trying to figure out how I can live my life in this situation, in this place? No problem. I can give myself over to this question. I can really focus on it. It means something to me. So the sutra says, diligently striving to cultivate the right dharma to the point that one practices it day and night. So it does tell us you have to work hard. It's not necessarily hard, but it's diligently. I learned a long time ago that if you try to write and you dedicate yourself just to writing all day long, it takes you for a long time to write something, and you have to throw half of it away. And the next day you start all over. But you know, if you can write a few sentences every day, over time, those few sentences grow to paragraphs. They eventually grow to pages. And lo and behold, by just writing what is important and meaningful at that time and excites you, can stay with you as you write a book, an article, a lecture. Just You practice it day and night, but it's because you simply are doing the things you understand or you love. Every day I feel I can't imagine anybody having a better life than I've had. I love to teach, and I've taught now for 70 years. I've been researching for 70 years at least. And it doesn't grow old. It doesn't get boring. It doesn't even get repetitive, because our lives are changing every day. Think about what your life was like a year ago and what it's like today. Would you have predicted what's happening to you today a year ago? Would you have thought of exactly what you were going to be doing today a year ago or a year from now? It is exciting. So where does wisdom come from? We want wisdom. Wisdom, says the text, is acquired through learning. That's right. The Dashabhumika says wisdom is acquired through learning. There are many people who don't believe this. They believe that wisdom is something you have that's mystical and is not something written down in words or something you won't find in books or texts. But the sutra itself is saying, don't get rid of anything until you're sure you can't use it. You must learn. We must all learn. And if reading the sutra every day, I learn something, I just have to learn one thing today. And that's enough in one sense. And it's cumulative. And the more I learn, I would hope, maybe there's more wisdom. A lot of people feel that if you get older, you become wise. And I have to tell you, that isn't true. You just get older. It's very possible to get older. But to become wiser, we have to keep learning. We must keep learning. And this is something I think that senior citizens are going to have to be told in all of the temples that you're in, that they must keep learning. If they don't keep learning, then they will lose the flavor of life, and they will have trouble understanding and dealing with all the things that are going to come upon them. As I said to you, I didn't realize that you have to learn how to be old, but you really do. Today, I had a nurse come to see me. She comes once in a while just to check up on me. And she says, well, what's happening to you? Tell me. And I tried to describe some things that were happening. And one of the things I was worried about, and she said, why are you worried about that? That's exactly what you do want. And I never thought that I wanted it. And she said, you got to stop thinking about what you think is not right, and understand that your body may be doing exactly what you need it to do. So I have to learn every day. And as I learn every day about being older, it opens up new territory for me. And I feel, as I said, that I'm so blessed that I could still teach this class. It's not that you're going to learn much from me, but I'm going to learn from you. I'm learning by teaching. There are times when I need to hear myself say something before I learn it. And you may be the same. You may need to hear yourself saying things to your followers that you yourself need to learn. And just in saying it, you have a different relationship with the people who are hearing you, because somehow they will sense that you're not just a high and mighty bending down to give them a few crumbs off the table. That's not what our teaching is about. To me, our teaching is that we must always learn and we must deal with life. So the sutra goes on to say, in every moment, the bodhisattva doesn't speak falsely. He speaks truthfully, genuinely, timely. What's said has real reference to a real issue. There's nothing worse than listening to somebody who's talking about something which is not where people are. And when I do that to you, I hope you'll forgive me. And I hope that you'll learn that you don't want to do that. You want to be timely, truthful, genuine. So, and even in dreams, that one finds in a dream that one is teaching. My dreams have changed over the years. And there are times, of course, when I have those dreams where you can't get there from here. And I hate those dreams. And I love to wake up and realize, oh no, I'm here in my bed. It's okay. I don't have to worry about that. I'm not lost in the wilderness. But when I am, sometimes I dream I am teaching a class. I don't know what I'm saying. It's very interesting. I can't hear the words in the dream, but I'm teaching something. And it makes me feel so joyous. And I'm so enlivened by whatever it is. And from those dreams, I wake up and I don't know quite what to do with myself because I'm happy. And I keep saying, why am I happy? What's done? What's going on? Why should I feel this way? But our dreams should never be anything that obscures what's happening to us. Even our dreams, as weird and strange as they can be, I must take them. So I look up here at Shilai Temple. We look out across at the San Gabriel Mountains. And every afternoon, the thunderheads generate and rise up above the mountains. And I love to watch those thunderheads because they change every moment. And they sometimes remind me of things. I can see dragons, I can see ships, I can see mountains, oceans. So the Dharma light that the Tathagatas have acquired, the Dharma light means the enlightenment, the content of it is countless, is such that it's beyond counting. It just works endlessly. And I could look at a cloud forever and it would never be the same, but it would be the cloud. So when I'm looking at what we have to do as teachers, it's true that we can never come to the end of everything that we could teach. We never come to the end of everything which is in the sutra. That's why it's so wonderful that there are times when I think, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to write. I'm just blanked out today. I've hit a stone wall. But I can always go read a sutra. And suddenly, the Dharma light of the Tathagata shines on me. And I suddenly see something that I never saw before. I have thoughts I have never thought before. And the sutra teaches me in that moment. So this, starting out with, I don't have time to do all these things. You don't have to do them all at once. You don't have to be an Olympia swimmer to swim in the pool. But it is wonderful to see the Olympic swimmers, to see the perfection of a diver who dives off the high board, does 3 flips in the air, and dives into the water. It's thrilling. It's really thrilling. And every one of them who does this have said, if you really want to perfect it, you must visualize yourself doing it. Before you go out and perform, they visualize themselves doing something perfectly. And you need to do this from time to time. If you've got to give a presentation and you're worried and you're wondering if you can do it and be good at it, picture yourself doing it really well. Picture yourself receiving the thanks of the audience who have really liked what you had to say. Because once you know what it is to do a good lecture, to visualize yourself doing one really can help. So this is what is known as a bodhisattva's perfection. Swimming with the Olympiads is a bodhisattva's perfection. It means that I know my limits, I know my strengths, and I can do what is best for me to do. And one of the things which a bodhisattva teaches us is it'll never be perfect. You'll never finish it. You will not have some absolute realization of the complete reality, and then you can say, it's perfect. I have nothing more to do and nothing more to say. It'll never happen to you in a bodhisattva path. A bodhisattva's perfection is not the total realization of the eighth bhumi. It's practicing as much of the items in the eighth bhumi as I'm capable of doing. It's giving my concerted effort to do what I can do and to do it in a way in which I can share it and realize I'll need to do this all over again tomorrow. So I had a question when I started tonight. Why is it that I don't have time to do everything that the sutra says? And the sutra tells me, of course you don't. It's endless. Of course you can't do it. What are you talking about? Do you know what you can do? Do you know what your strengths are? Do you know what's fitting for this moment? Do you know what I need to say right now? Then you've got the Bodhisattva's perfection. And so I wanted to give you this lecture because I want you to understand that reading the Dashabhumika Sutra is not just adding a burden to your life. It is adding an understanding of what life is really like. And there's a truthfulness in the sutra. And there's an honesty in it, which allows us to believe that it really can help us daily, hourly, minute by minute if we need it. So I thank you all. We'll pause and maybe have our break. Thank you.